Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. In every episode of this show that we've covered so far, we've never really gotten the vibe that Basil and Sybil really care about anything regarding their relationship other than the fact they're together and they work together. And there was passion early on that has slowly gone down to a simmer. This episode changes that because this is episode 5 of season 2, The Anniversary. And it's Basil and Sybil's 15th anniversary. Quite a milestone. Not as big of a milestone as 5 more years would have been, but it's a good one. And it's a comedy of errors plot stemming from Basil pushing things way too far as he usually does. What's the thing he pushes too far? Well, for the 14th anniversary, as they mentioned in dialogue, Basil forgot his anniversary. Which, it's a common guy thing, it seems, at least in comedy, that they forget their anniversary. How? I don't know. You'd think anniversary would be an easy thing to remember, especially if you guys put it on a date easy to remember. But he forgot, and this year he remembered, but he's playing it off to Sybil that he forgot. And just the way that he is acting while telling him, like, the anniversary of the Battle of Agincourt? Amongst other things, really puts Sybil off. Originally, it's just him doing his usual humor until their guests arrive and they'll be, surprise, I remember it's Sybil. But he never gets a chance because while he's waiting for that, Sybil storms off to go visit a friend who wasn't coming. And just the way John Cleese plays it off, Sybil, I remember it's Sybil. You're like, even before Sybil walks outside, you as the audience are probably thinking, no, Basil, you're pushing things too far. That's what I was doing because I remember she walked off. And the moment it happens, it's like, and that's why. The comedy of errors comes into play after this as each and every one of the guests start to arrive. And instead of being honest and telling them, well, I was playing her up to just get her reaction once you all came in, but she stormed off. No, that'd be simple. Instead of doing that, Basil plays the whole thing. She's ill, she's up top. No, you don't want to see her. Constantly trying to have to run around with all the guests. Polly helping. Her thighs are swelled up. They just keep venting lie after lie. It ties in with what Cleese stated about Basil, that he always comes up with excuses like that, but they're always bad ones. Being sick could be a good one, but knowing her friends, they want to go see her, or Basil probably could have put in, she doesn't want to be disturbed, she even said so, but it doesn't work, especially since one of the friends happens to be a nurse. That's never gonna work when that happens. So he drags Polly into it to try to help, and it just keeps going round and round and round until the end when Sybil does come back in and unravels everything. And Basil tries to play it off, gets everyone to go, and then of course he's going to get yelled at by Sybil, but it happens off screen. And she probably's like, you really did remember, you stupid idiot man! The majority of the episode is, of course, Basil trying to wrangle the friends, trying to get them to not go up there, coming up with his second plan once they decide to go up there of having Polly dress up like Sybil and lighting to make it look like it, which the lighting they use, it is convincing. But you can see why she didn't want him to get closer and why she lashes out at the friend that does. And there's a subplot of Manuel wanting to make his mother's pie recipe for Sybil for the anniversary, and of course the cook getting upset because that's his area of expertise, insulting, and they end up getting into a fight at the end, which I can kind of understand. I mean, it is his job as the cook, but it's like, Manuel said he wanted to do it for the anniversary. Let the man do it for the anniversary. They don't really state it a lot, but I have a feeling it's him being a little bit racist, maybe trying to protect his job security. They never comment on it, so it's hard to really tell, but it could be a little bit of that. I mean, the fact that Basil constantly is making remarks about he's from Barcelona should kind of go into it, but it's very, very subtle. And if you don't think Basil is racist this late into the show, watch that scene from the Germans again and tell me he's not racist. Reaction to the doctor. That alone should tell you he's a little bit racist. There's a lot of interest in trivia for this. This is the first and only appearance of Audrey, Sybil's friend that she's constantly talking on the phone with. In every episode we see her go, I know, you left him again? That friend. So it's nice that we actually get to put a face to the name, even if this is the only time, because there's only one more episode after this. Ken Campbell replaced Julian Holloway as Roger when industrial action delayed shooting. IMDb doesn't really list what the industrial action is. It could be something to do with set design, could be some other weird thing. I know with the next episode there was a BBC strike, so it could have been the beginning portions of that strike. Delayed filming, they got to film it, then the strike happened. That delayed filming of that episode, so they got to audition a bit more. Or it could actually just end up being the same strike, and this is the episode they were doing right when it happened, so they had to replace the guy, and they got more time with that one, but not as much audition time as with the next one, because that delayed filming even further. It's kind of hard to tell with the wording, but I would probably like to say, based on the timing, it could be. And that the full-on strike also delayed the airing of the last episode. While Basil is trying to distract his friends from going in to see Polly dressed as Sybil, and he goes downstairs to go get stuff to clean up a mess he made, one of them says, "A Basil brush," which is one of those lines that you're like, okay, why is that funny? And this is why. It's one of those references to British pop culture at the time, because Basil Brush was the name of a fox hand puppet on a British children's TV show. It's one of those gags that at the time you would probably get it. If you knew about the show later on you'd get the reference. But it's lost to time if you don't. It's kind of like how Bugs Bunny started his carrot habit as a parody of a movie where Clark Gable did the same thing with a carrot. And then that parody got lost to time, and it's just people know it's associated with the character without the context of why it's associated with the character. Not quite the same thing, but you get the gist. Now, this last one, it doesn't elaborate on if this applied when the episode was shot or this is more a retroactive thing, but this is one involving old Connie Booth. When Basil is trying to get Polly to agree to dress up as Sybil, which is an aside, the fact he forces her into the room and is like dragging her like that. They might have been divorced at this time, but it showed the trust and the chemistry that these two ex-spouses still had at this point in the show, not only just as writers but as performers. And the physical comedy in that scene alone is pretty good. And it makes that scene in Basil's desperation to not let his friends know that Sybil's not up there. But once they get into the room and he's trying to get her to commit to it, she tells Basil, "Mr. Fawlty, you might even be having a nervous breakdown. I'm no expert." In real life, Connie Booth is a qualified psychotherapist, so she would be an expert on the matter. Now, if this is a retroactive thing, that is quite a prophetic thing, but it's one of those coincidental things like a lot of the predictions from The Simpsons. But if she had already finished her schooling or whatnot, it's a nice little in-joke, like, hey. Probably everyone that knew Connie would have been like, ah. All in all, this is a pretty fun episode. It's not one of my favorite episodes of the series, but it is one that I enjoyed watching. If you don't really like comedy of errors episodes or humor, you probably want to skip this one other than the few moments that are need to watch, like the ending on Ravel, which if you don't like the lie revealed trope, you probably won't like that. But with Basil, that is kind of par for the course because of how much he lies and tries to come up with excuses. Physical comedy between Polly and Basil. The whole thing with Manuel is a funny little subplot. It makes me wonder what the pie would have looked like or tasted like. All the friends reacting. We only get one major appearance, which is kind of a little funny moment. Gives Basil some more time. It's a nice little episode segued in there. Doesn't really feel too much like filler. And it is nice to actually get to see a little bit more development in the marriage of the Fawltys, because up to this point we've just seen them as married, and makes you wonder, is this a loveless marriage now? With how Sybil reacts, I would admit there is still some passion in her marriage, if only the fact that she just loves celebrating their anniversary. And her reaction definitely feels jilted in that moment, and her reaction when she comes back and tells Fawlty she's leaving is like, remember the whole woman scorn thing, this is why. Or at least she's leaving for the day to go golf with her friend Audrey. And it still makes you wonder what happens once she comes out and she's like, "Basil, you gonna tell me now?" And hopefully he was honest and went, all right. And of course now we come up to the final episode of both the season and the series. It was broadcast months after this one, and it has a very apt title considering how Basil Fawlty acts, and that, of course, is Basil the Rat.